Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
I think we all have stories from the pandemic. Of course, we all have stories. We all know where we were when the lockdown started and the things that raced through our minds. And everybody's got a unique story. I want to kind of take you through a moment later on in the pandemic. It was more towards. It was in the summertime, and I live in Ohio. March is it's cold, so you were home, you were indoors. I came to the office every day, but a lot of people stayed home, and but there wasn't a whole lot of things open. But as we got into the summertime and the curve flattened, or so we thought, things started to open up a little bit, and there's a restaurant bar that's about a mile and a half from where we live. And all my kids were home. So it was like, hey, listen, we'd been eating out a lot. A lot of it was carry out. But let's go out. Let's go down to, it's a place called Flanagan's, and they have it's an old, I don't want to say crappy bar. It's just an older bar, right? I mean, it's like you go into the bathroom and it's like, oh my God, all right. I'm going to wash my hands as I come in and as I leave, kind of a thing. But they've got good food and they've got a big patio out back. So we're figuring, okay, we're not going to be indoors. Not supposed to be indoors. We've been indoors. We don't want to be here anymore. Let's go sit out on the patio. So we did. We went there and we came in. And of course, we didn't have the only idea. A lot of people did. A lot of people were just anxious to get out. And so it was pretty crowded. And so we walked in. There were 5 of us, me, my wife, and we have 3 kids. I've got a daughter and 2 sons. And we're just kind of standing there, kind of surveying things like, okay, where do we go? Is there anything open? And it's a big patio. They have music out there. But anyhow, we're kind of surveying things and kind of moving about. At one point, there's a woman that we're familiar with. Her daughter played on my daughter's soccer team years ago, and so we certainly familiar with them, live in the same basic general area. At any rate, she just saw us and she came up and she just gave us the big hug. And I don't know if she hugged. Certainly, she hugged my daughter because she knows my daughter. I'm certain she hugged my wife. I don't know if she hugged my boys because I don't know if she really knows them, but she hugged me, and then she went on. And that was the end of it. She just said hello, and she had a table, and her family was there, and she went and sat with her family, which is great. But I remember turning to my wife and saying, "Oh my God, that felt good to have somebody hug you." Because again, if you left home at all, you were going somewhere, you were alone. And it's not that we were totally alone. I had a lot of Zoom calls. But being around people, being in physical or in close proximity with people, it wasn't happening. And certainly, we were socially distancing 6 feet apart. There was a lot of that going on. And you might be standing in line somewhere and be uncomfortable if somebody was within 4 feet of you, which in normal times is not a big deal. But it was just very interesting to me, the power of that hug. Not just that hug, but hugs in general. And it really got me thinking about hugs and relationships. Not necessarily personal relationships, certainly, yes, personal relationships, but professional relationships as well. And that different people have different perceptions of that physical touching. It's relatively non-intimate. It can be between total friends. And there are people, my family, my my father's family, my cousins and aunts and uncles, they are huggers. I remember introducing a girl I was dating to my grandmother for the first time. Oh, and she gave her a big hug. Very odd. Just because that just wasn't, what my girlfriend's family was like. Um, and so, very odd. But I kind of forewarned my wife, when I was introducing them to that side of the family for the first time. It's like, I guess, gonna let you know, these people are huggers, right? I mean, they're just huggers. They're meeting you for the first time. They're gonna give you a hug. That's just the way it is. And I see that out in the professional world. I have a chapter of AmSpirit Business Connections. These people are huggers. Um, and it's very interesting because there are people who have gotten into the chapter who I wouldn't think would be huggers, probably aren't very comfortable with it, that have really warmed up to it. And then I have other chapters where that's not the case. It's, handshake is cool. That's enough. Um, and both are fine. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just kind of interesting how some people really embrace, no pun intended, embrace hugging, and other people don't. I had an assistant working for me for a number of years. Great person. Hugging was not her thing. In fact, she wore a T-shirt from time to time. It had a cactus on it. Just talking, basically some sort of commentary about, yeah, come give me a hug. I'm like, and she told me, I'm just not a hugger. It's just not who I am. And sure enough, it was her last day, and she'd been here for 5 years, and you know, we just shook hands, and that was the end of it. Then I've had others where that's not the case. Hugging is kind of, their thing. The woman who replaced the one who didn't hug was totally opposite. Totally opposite. Told me right from the get-go, I'm a hugger. She came in for an interview, had a great interview, and she just said at the door, I'm a hugger. And it was like, okay, not that that's the reason I hired her, but you know what? It didn't hurt, right? It didn't hurt that, hey, I'm a personable person, and I've had other assistants, same sort of thing. They're just, hey, I'm going away for a week. Here's a hug, or, I'm whatever it might be. Well, it's not an everyday sort of a thing, but it really got me to thinking about hugging. Obviously there's shaking hands and there's pats on the back, but there is a lot to hugging. There's not a lot of research out there on hugging. Recently, there was an article, there was a study that was published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior. And I'll kind of go through some of the stats that came from that. But I don't know that you necessarily need to know that hugging is good. I mean, I have my own study, right? I'm a sample size of one, but I know from being at that bar of Flanagan's and being hugged that there's something to it, right? There's something to it. There's something to the notion of just reaching out and embracing somebody. But anyhow, in this study, some of the things they've come up with is that more hugs means a better mood. People who hug had a more positive mood and felt less lonely than people who embrace less. Okay, a lot of these things are somewhat obvious. Other things that they found that when people hug for 20 seconds, which could be awkward. I've hugged people and it's just been awkward. I remember walking into a meeting. I was in a particular good mood, and there was somebody there they're a hugger, right? So I, go up to them and give them a hug, and the chapter is not really a hugging chapter. And I gave this person a hug, and other people kind of saw it, and I said, yeah, today we're giving hugs. And I walked around and gave other people hugs, and some people just wanted none of it, just totally uncomfortable. Others were like, yeah, this is kind of neat. Others you could just feel like, all right, yeah, this is fine. That's enough. That's enough. We've touched. But when people hug for 20 seconds or more, their body releases oxytocin, which is kind of that feel-good hormone, which creates a stronger bond and connection between the huggers. Again, this is a podcast about relationships. hugging is a great way to certainly build relationships. Um, the study goes on to say 4 is the magic number. On average, participants in a week-long study hug 4 people each day, but some hugged no one at all, and one person managed to hug 110 people over the week. It's a lot of hugging. It's a lot of hugging. But again, it depends on the culture. It depends on the setting. My um, I'm Catholic, and what I do from time to time is I go visit other Catholic churches, just to attend Mass in different places. And there's a point in Mass where you shake hands with people. At least this is pre-COVID. This has all kind of gone away. But I visited a particular church in Columbus. It's largely a black congregation. Oh my gosh, lots of hugging, and it's just that's what they're about. I hope they've gotten back to it. I haven't gotten back to visit there. I need to go visit there again, but it's just it just kind of creates it creates a mood for everybody. Study went on to say that weekends are for hugging. People were not as eager to hug on Monday, and that's true of most weekdays, but in the weekends there was a spike in hugging. They're keeping track of people were reporting on their hugging. Um, Singles benefit the most in terms of life satisfaction. The study found that hugging affects the well-being of singles much more than it did that of a partnered person. I get that. I'm married. My wife, we hug and we kiss, before I head off to work or she heads off or whatever. But it's the law of diminishing returns, right? I mean, it's a daily thing. It's just part of the routine, and over time, it's like if you have pizza every day. I love pizza, but every day, it just kind of it loses its luster. It's not as great as that pizza when you are just starving and it's really good pizza. And the last thing they found is that there are certain personalities that just benefit more from hugging. People who are highly neurotic benefit more than people who are less neurotic. Uh, you know, I don't know how they tested that or whatever, but it's no surprise to me. I mean, I think there are people out there who just they need the security of it. It's better for them, and other people they don't. But there are lots of benefits to hugging, and it may be your thing, it may not be your thing, but it's a way of building rapport with other people. And like I said, the chapter that I go to where they hug, I look forward to it. I really do look forward to it, and they're close with one another. Now, do they give more referrals? There's more to giving referrals than just liking one another, but they care about each other, and I think they care about each other more than if they didn't. So, interesting. Go out, hug somebody if that's your thing. Even if it's not, maybe try and add it a little more into your world.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.